All right, everybody. So this is going to be my first time talking about this story, but it has been getting a lot of info, a lot of updates in the last week, and I feel it's time I finally got to it because it's no longer really that much of a developing story and more of a developed story worth talking about. So, I believe 2 years ago now, it was back in 2021, a young man named Ethan Crumbley, I believe it was, came into a school and murdered multiple people. He was a school shooter. Thing is, the gun that he used for the school shooting was a gun that belonged to him, but it was bought for him by his parents. It was allowed to be held by him by his parents. And prior to the school shooting, there was an insane amount of evidence or amount of red flags brought to the child's parents' attention that he was clearly in imminent danger, who had desires to kill, and was even writing up and drawing up plans to kill, and yet they were willing to arm him with a firearm. Because of this, both parents are being charged with manslaughter, involuntary manslaughter, because they are complicit in the murders, as most people seem to agree. I'm curious what you guys will think in the comments of this one. So Jennifer Crumbley is the mom. She's the one that's being charged first. As you can imagine, the mom and dad have actually completely flipped on each other. It's now a he said, she said thing where the dad is trying to say the mom is the most at fault while the mom is trying to say the dad is most at fault. So the mom's trial is going first, and obviously we've gotten a development in her trial, and we are still waiting on info on what will happen with the dad. Complacent, not complicit. Sorry, complacent. I apologize. With that said, I've got an ABC News special report clip here updating us on Jennifer Crumbley's verdict. She has been found guilty on all counts of involuntary manslaughter. This is massive, by the way. I know this story may seem like, oh, who cares? Like a parent was found guilty because their kid shot up a school. This is a big deal. This is the first real precedent-setting case in which parents can be held responsible for their kids doing a school shooting. And I'm going to be honest, as a very pro-gun American gun owner, I'm fully in favor of this. I think the fact that parents will now have the fear of God struck into their hearts that if their kid is able to get their hands on a gun, that they're going to be held just as legally liable as if they'd been holding the gun themselves. I think that's going to lead to a lot more parents making sure that if they get their kids a gun, their kid can handle it. And if that they do have guns in the house with kids that can't handle it, they keep it well secured because they don't want to be found liable if their gun's used in a school shooting. I hope this verdict strikes the fear of God into irresponsible parents that own guns and let their kids own guns. Because if you're a gun owner in America, like me, who's pro-gun and doesn't like when the government cracks down on your rights to own guns or gun-related paraphernalia, like magazines and silencers or suppressors and certain types of ammo, bump stock, stuff like that, certain types of guns, if you're against those bans, then you should be fully in favor of the government doing everything in its power to make sure that legal gun ownership is done as safely as possible. So yeah, I'm fully in favor of this, both as a gun owner and as a human being who wants to see less kids die.
Now reporting, David Muir.
Good afternoon. We're coming on the air at this hour because a jury has reached a verdict in the unprecedented trial of a mother charged in connection with her son's deadly high school shooting in Oxford, Michigan. You're looking at live pictures.
To be very clear, there was so many red flags for this kid that he was a violent killer in the making, and that arming him was not a good idea. He was drawing pictures of himself killing people and of dead bodies. There was a lot. There was a lot of evidence.
Right now, this is the first of its kind case in the country. Jennifer Crumbley facing 4 counts of involuntary manslaughter after her son Ethan Crumbley opened fire at his high school in 2021, killing 4 classmates using the gun his parents had bought for him. They have just asked the courtroom to rise. The judge, Cheryl Matthews, back in the court, the jury entering that courtroom, about to deliver their verdict. Ethan Crumbley was 15 years old at the time of the shooting. Both Jennifer Crumbley and her husband are accused of ignoring what the prosecution calls obvious warning signs that their son needed help. Now, the husband, the father, will be tried separately.
They were very obvious. Like, I mean, school psychologists calling PTA meetings with the parents to explain, hey, we found pictures your kid drew of him killing people. You need to look into this. That's the kind of very obvious signs that the parents ignored and still got him a gun. I think they got him an AR-15 too. I'm almost certain. I mean, the go-to rifle for any shooting has always been the AR-15 because of its popularity. So I'm pretty sure they got him like the most efficient killing weapon that a civilian can realistically get their hands on too. Good God.
Are you the person?
I am.
Could you please read your verdict?
Individually?
Sure.
Okay. On count 1 of involuntary manslaughter as to Madison Baldwin, we find the defendant guilty of involuntary manslaughter.
Look at that. Look at that face. I always like looking at the face when the guilty verdict comes out, or the not guilty verdict. Whenever they're clearly not guilty, I always love seeing the face when someone who is clearly falsely accused is found not guilty. There's some clips of that on YouTube that are fun to watch if you want to see those, but it's also fun when someone who absolutely did it, who did a horrible fucking thing, their face just sinks when they hear the guilty verdict. It fills me with so much joy.
Baldwin, we find the defendant guilty of involuntary manslaughter. On count 2 of involuntary manslaughter in regards to Tate Muir, we find the defendant guilty of involuntary manslaughter. On count 3, as to involuntary manslaughter regarding Hannah St. Juliana, we find the defendant guilty of involuntary manslaughter.
For every kid that died.
And in count 4 of involuntary manslaughter against Justin Schilling, we find the defendant guilty of involuntary manslaughter.
Thank you for allowing me to be seated. And
This is a big, big, big deal. Not only does this set a legal precedent that will change future court proceedings and lead to a lot more convictions of parents that left their guns not secured, whatever it may be, it's going to result in parents are going to think twice before they buy their kid a gun. Parents are going to think twice before they leave their gun in a place their kid can get to it after this. This is a big story. And gun owners follow stories like this. That's the thing you got to remember. Gun owners in America are like this massive but still tight-knit community. Everyone who's someone in the gun community knows each other, even if it's through, at most through 1 degree of separation. It is an extremely tight-knit community. They repeat all the same talking points and receive all the same talking points from, the same companies and lobbyists. It is a massive community of people that all research from the same, outlets and everything. This story was heavily followed. This court decision is going to be heard and known by a lot of gun-owning parents. And I think it's going to actually result... We'll never know, obviously. There's no way to prove it. There's no way to know whether it did or didn't. But I'm willing to say this will result in less shootings than there would have been otherwise. There will be some parent out there that will have locked up their gun or made the decision not to buy their kid that seems a little bit off, not buy that kid a gun. And it's going to lead to lives being saved. And not only that, if you're a pro-gun person like me, it's not just that lives were saved. That's obviously a bonus. But it's that every shooting that doesn't happen is less ammo that anti-gun people can use to advocate for banning guns. I live in a state where the brunt of anti-gun policy has passed, and I've seen how bad it is. I assumed, okay, I mean, I'm a legal citizen. It really isn't that hard to get a gun, like the conservatives bitch and complain like it is. And then I found out, oh no, in my state, every single long gun, every rifle that can go bang, 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 bang is banned. Outright banned. You can't get it. You can't get semi-auto rifles in my state. They're all banned. It's only pistols and bolt-action rifles and shotguns. That's it. That's all you can get. That's all you can legally have or buy here. Well, you can have other stuff if you already got it before the ban went into place, which I didn't, sadly. Like, it's bad. It sucks. Gun stores got fucked. Gun owners are mad. And, like, even left-leaning gun owners are mad. These bans blow. And so if you're somebody who's pro-gun, you should be just as in favor of policies and a verdict like this and policies like safe storage laws and standards that punish those who were enablers of mass shootings and other gun crime. Ridiculous standard. I get auto, but semi-auto. Enceladus, automatic weapons have been pretty much fully banned in most of America since the 80s. Unless you're ex-military, ex-police, or in a very, very small amount of circumstances where you can get like certain permits with the ATF in some states, like Texas, you can get full auto weapons. But semi-auto, which is like the AR-15, just a semi-auto rifle that has like a 30-round magazine by default, that's just the most popular type of rifle in America. And they banned that in California, Washington, and a handful of other states like New Jersey, I think New York as well. And it's what Republicans are getting a lot of their support off of right now, is the fact that all across America, gun owners are terrified that if we get another another term of Biden presidency, that AR-15s are going to be gone federally. That he's going to manage to fuck it all federally, AR-15s and other semi-auto rifles. If that happens, gun owners in America, like shooting as a hobby in America, is done. The gun culture and gun community in America is done. If what's been done in California and Washington succeeds on a federal level. There will still be immense amounts of gun crime. It won't affect crime at all. There'll still be just as many shootings and everything because there's more guns than people in America. So, like, banning the guns won't change anything other than gun owners in America will never vote Democrat ever again. They will vote Republican harder than you've ever seen. There will be more Republican voter turnout than ever. And another Democrat will never be elected by gun owners in America, which make up most Americans, ever again. Nothing good will happen. It'll be the worst possible scenario. I don't want to get this like all tied up in a gun conversation, but like this is a good verdict on so many levels. It's justice, and it's practically a good thing because it's going to mean less shootings.
An historic moment in this country amid the school shootings.
This is a deterrent.
As a country again. This is
a deterrent, but there was already a deterrent from like shooting up a school. That being, you'll either be gunned down by the police, have to shoot yourself before the cops get you, or go to prison, right? And you'll probably be executed in prison too. Like that was already the deterrent for the shooter. Now there's a deterrent for people who have weapons to keep their weapons from being taken by shooters and used. They could be charged with involuntary manslaughter for every kill. That's a massive precedent. That's going to scare a lot of gun owners. I know for sure I'm getting a safe as soon as possible. I don't want anyone breaking into my house and using my gun to commit crime, both morally and just legally too. Obviously, I'm always home, so it's not going to happen, but I still want a safe. Like a proper big-ass safe.
First case in which a parent has been charged and tried in connection with their child's deadly school shooting. You've just heard Jennifer Crumbley found guilty on 4 counts of involuntary manslaughter, 1 count for each of the students killed in that shooting. The judge instructing everyone in the court to remain seated. Let's listen back in.
Jury in seat number 11, was that and is that your verdict?
Yes.
Jury in seat number 12, was that and is that your verdict?
Yes.
Jury in seat number 13, was that and is that your verdict?
Yes.
Jury in seat number 14, was that and is that your verdict?
Yes.
Jury in seat number 16, was that and is that your verdict?
Yes. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. We all know that this is one of the hardest things.
At least in Canada, gun safe's a requirement, at least in Ontario, as far as I know. Yeah, do you want to know why Canada has so many less shootings? That's one of the biggest reasons. The majority of gun crime is committed with stolen illegal guns. Yeah. The majority of gun crime is committed with pistols that were stolen. They're bought illegally. They were obtained via theft from legal owners that didn't take care of their guns properly. Or they died, and the guns got hand-me-down to someone who committed crime. I think that just inheriting guns is a bad system. I don't think that should be a system that's allowed in America. I think that there should have to be like, okay, you died, You're officially dead and you had guns. All right, we're gonna have to we're gonna have to see, like, before that's able to be passed on. We're gonna have to do all the checks you would have to do to buy a gun for whoever's inheriting them. But that's not a thing. Like, if your like uncle has guns, dies and leaves them to you, they're yours now legally in America. No paperwork, no ATF form needs to be signed unless, I believe, if they're fully automatic, like if it's like an AK or something that's part of that assault weapons ban in the 80s. It might require ATF form filing for the transfer of ownership, but pretty much anything else, semi-auto, pistols, shotguns, anything like that, you just have it now. It's yours now. You own it now, just by inheriting it. But Canada does safe storage laws, which means it is illegal simply to own your gun and to not keep it safely stored in a safe where a kid or a criminal can't get it. It is also, they do daily background checks on every gun owner in Canada every day. Daily background checks on every gun owner in Canada. They are more strictly checked than sex offenders are. And they question partners to ask if there's been any issues with domestic abuse before you're allowed to get a gun. They like check with employers, like ex-employers, to check if there was ever any violent incidents. Like, they just ask, was there ever any violent incidents at work with this person? Like, they do a deep investigation. You have to wait months before you're permitted to get a gun. And it's a pain in the ass. And it's extremely thorough, maybe too thorough. But look how many few gun deaths there are in Canada compared to America. And you can implement those laws and make it legal for anyone to get any gun they want. You can make it legal for people to have tanks, as long as there is enough guardrails to prevent bad actors from getting their hands on that shit and punishing those that allow bad actors to get their hands on that shit. You will see that drop in crime. Punishing people who follow the law is not how you prevent crimes.
You've ever done. I'm going to ask you to return to the jury room.
You got me stun locked on guns, goddammit.
The remaining alternates are also going to join you, and I'll be with you in a few minutes.
Thank you. All rise for the jury.
You can hear the judge there speaking with the jury, saying this is one of the most difficult things you will ever do. The jury now leaving that courtroom. That was the polling of the jury, if you will, making sure that each one of them agreed with the verdict that had been read. Again, Jennifer Crumbley, the mother charged in her son's deadly school shooting, right there in the courtroom. You see her next to her lawyer. She's been found guilty on 4 counts of involuntary manslaughter in that courtroom. Let's listen to the judge.
That should be fine, Judge. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
April 9th at 9 o'clock is fine. Thank you.
All right. I'm going to ask everyone to remain seated while the defendant is taken out of the courtroom. Right?
All rise.
That seems to be the majority of the interesting part of the trial. This is a big deal. As a gun owner, as an American, I am fully in favor of this ruling. I'm really curious to see what you guys think about a mom being held responsible for the murders committed by her son. Obviously, the context makes it very clear that she could have stopped this at many points, and it was actually insane that she never thought for a moment not to arm the kid. I'd have a hard time imagining anybody defending this woman. I really have a hard time imagining anyone defending this woman and saying she doesn't deserve the sentencing. After she bought the kid the gun, had multiple meetings with child psychologists and guidance counselors from the school telling her the kid is at high risk of committing violence and that he needs help, they still bought him and allowed him to have access to a fucking firearm. An AR-15, much less. Like, I'm not, like, on board with the whole, like, AR-15s are these uniquely deadly weapons or anything like that, but, like, they are the most efficient civilian tier firearm, like, on average, that anyone's going to be able to get their hands on to do something like this, which is why there's so much attention on it. It's popular, it's efficient, it's very capable of doing this type of atrocity, and so there's a lot of attention on the AR-15. Obviously, the AR-15 would just be replaced by another popular rifle that would take its place if it was banned specifically, and it would get every gun owner in America to vote Republican guaranteed with the highest voter turnout we've ever seen from gun owners, but it could happen. It could happen. I don't know. I'm just glad to see that this is how it's turned out, and I hope that the deterrent actually keeps one or two less shootings from happening, maybe more.